Hey everyone, I finally got a chance to play the Icon version 2 from Diadem, and if you want to hear about it, stay tuned. This is Keith Valentine, the Pickleball Pirate. Let me just say that I am a fan of Diadem as a company. They do not do the same thing twice, so all of their paddles are different in some way, shape, or form, from their Diadem Warrior to their Warrior Edge to the Icon, and now the Icon V2. Even within these models, they're different. Let's talk about the upgrades to this that were from the previous version. So the previous version had this RP spin face material. It did not spin very much. It got about 1450 on the spin test through Chris Olsen and other independent testers. That's a little bit just average, right? So when you swiped with the old version, it wouldn't really grab the ball. First thing they've done is they've got a polyurethane coating with grit paint in it that was kind of like the Vice paddle that they came out. It's not a legal paddle, but it's a recreational paddle, has holes in it. With that paint, they put that on here, and it is noticeably different. So these paddles get about 1850 on the spin test. So that is about top 20 of spin of all the paddles measured so far by Chris Olsen. So 1851, exactly the same as the Selkirk Power Air. All right, let me give you a little bit more specs on these before I go further. This is 8.0 ounces. It's 16 inches long, 7.6 inches wide. It's got a 13.7 millimeter thickness, and the balance on this is 235, which means it's head neutral, or maybe a little bit leaning towards head light. You might want to add some lead tape over here at the end if you want to add more any swing weight to it. The longer version, which is my favorite version right now, and I did not have to add any weight to this, is 8.25 ounces. It is 16.5 inches long, 7.2 inches wide, and same thickness, but 242. So it's a little bit more head heavy because it's extended. It's got a 5.5 inch handle, and this is a 5.25 inch handle. But so 5.5 inch handle, very comfortable with a two-handed backhand, very comfortable for that shot. What I'll say about these things right off the bat is they do not feel like a 13 millimeter paddle. So you see how thin these are. Most of the time when you're playing a thin paddle, you want to stay away from them because they're a little bit harder on the elbow. So there's only one paddle that's thin that is made for tennis elbow, and that's the Pro Kinetics. But these guys here play more like a polypropylene paddle. That's because they are full of polypropylene. So what they've done with these things, very much like the Warrior that they have, they've got a couple of sandwiched small pocket polypropylene layers with a layer in the middle here that absorbs the shock. And so it's like a very, very thin layer in the middle. Got these two guys sandwiched around it. So when you hit these paddles, they truly feel like a control paddle, but they're not. They have a lot of pop. So on the swing weight chart, this is 122. I believe this one, 121. This one is, I think, around 114 on the swing weight. This has more swing weight than the Power Air with the same amount of spin. When you start combining these things, you have a thin paddle that has more power and can produce spin. You have a dangerous weapon. Traditionally, I was a blocking player. So until recently, I was always a blocking player. So I like the Selkirk Vanguards, the really good touch control paddles. That was my thing. I didn't hit with spin. Now that I've started to learn how to hit with spin, I'm finding that I really, really enjoy hitting shots that involve spin and being able to shape my shots. These paddles, I keep reaching for in my bag. The spin that I can generate with these on third shot drops, third shot drives, even just dinking in the kitchen, you can brush the ball and it just grabs hold of it. With 1851 on the spin meter from Chris Olsen and the other guys, like, it is top 20 in spin, and it can be felt when you play with this paddle. The other thing that I'll tell you is that for a power paddle, I've never felt this much control. I can take the ball and pretty much put it anywhere in the court and just feel like it's a dart thrower to me. This paddle has so much control. I can be very precise with my shots. Instead of trying to hit at somebody's foot, I'm trying to clip his toenail. That's the kind of control I'm talking about here. So one of the reasons why they have so much control, Diadem was a tennis company. They had a foam injection system called the Flex Stabilization System they use on their tennis rackets. They did it on this paddle as well. So just like the thermoformed paddles, this is not thermoformed, it has a layer of high density foam. So with this Flex Stabilization high density foam, they inject that around the edge of this paddle. making the sweet spot on this so large for a thin paddle. I was very amazed at this. And holding both of these, right, this one has a little bit less pop than this guy, a little bit less reach, but the control on this is a little bit higher than this guy. So this one's a little bit harder to control because it's a longer paddle. You got to have your timing right. I found myself getting lazier with this paddle because I didn't have to bend my knees as far, because I could use the end of the paddle. But I also get a little bit reachy at the net when I play with a longer paddle. So just be aware that this thing feels like you're going to get to more balls with a longer paddle, but there are going to be some trade-offs in control and trade-offs in, maybe being a little bit more aggressive out of the air or getting lazy with not bending your knees and catching the end of the paddle. The awesome benefit, I think, for these paddles, to me, is the more offense. Now, my game is offensive sometimes, but not offensive sometimes. I am not an aggressive pickleball player. I typically am a control player. I'm a resetter. I'm going to block you back into the kitchen. In no man's land, I'm just going to try and block it back. What I found with these paddles is I had way more offense. I was able to be aggressive at the kitchen. My counter punches when I got out in front of the balls was hard for them to get their hands back on. So the offensive increase on this without the loss of control, I keep reaching for these paddles in my bag. I love the way they play, and I love the way that the ball responds to them. One last thing to note that I think is just another unique identifier of this company is the edge guard. It is an edgeless paddle, but it does have an edge guard here. This edge guard is removable, and they got like 9 different colors. So now you got customization on top of it. I know that sounds silly, but a lot of people like to do some cosmetic stuff. So you could get different color edge guards and have a black paddle with a red edge guard, or green or pink, whatever color you want. This white one here, you could put different colors on it to make it look more snazzy. I love what they've done with these paddles. This is a great company. And with our discounts below, you get a great 10% discount. Take that on us, and I tell you what, you got to give these paddles a try. And if you don't think you'd like the thin paddle and you want to try the other ones, you can check out these reviews here.